Chapter 31 Spiritual Veins, Secret Realm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At Xianxia's suggestion, they plan to establish various professions such as alchemy, formation, and refining to improve the professional system of Tianyuan realm. In terms of alchemy, Han Li's master Zhang Fulong had dabbled in it, and Han Li also knew a little about it. As for formation, the immortal master Lin Tian constructed the Zhoutian Xingdou formation in the past, which can be regarded as a reference. In recent years, Han Li and Yi Xingqian have also improved the Zhoutian Xingdou formation, and the speed of converting spiritual energy is much faster than before. They have never touched other professions such as refining, so they can only guess randomly. After 500 years of evolution, all kinds of professions have entered the right track. Among them, alchemists are the most popular. Of course, the conditions for becoming an alchemist are very harsh, and only 1 in 1,000 cultivators may appear. In 500 years, the spiritual energy in Tianyuan realm has become more and more dense, especially in the heavenly domain. For this reason, he modified the proportion of spiritual energy given. The heavenly domain accounts for 60%, and the remaining 40% is given to the earthly domain. Now there are also powerful people in the Jindan stage in the region, and many cultivators no longer run to the Tianyu. The real-time data of Tianyuan realm is as follows. There are 6 people in the Yuanying stage, including Han Li and Yi Xingqian, and both of them have reached the perfection of the Yuanying stage. There are 300 people in the Jindan stage, which has reached the upper limit. This also means that Tianyuan realm needs to be promoted, otherwise it will not be able to accommodate more high-level cultivators. Han Li and Yi Xingqian found a planet during this period, which is a new cultivation world, and the highest cultivation level is only foundation building. Tianyuan realm easily took it down. If this world is integrated into Tianyuan realm will be promoted to accommodate cultivators of higher realms. At that time, Han Li and Yi Xingqian will also break through the shackles of Yuanying and advance to the next realm, but he does not want to do this. He plans to refine this world into a spiritual vein or a secret realm. The foundation of Tianyuan realm is too low. The spiritual energy of the world depends entirely on the conversion of chaotic energy. Without internal production, this is not possible. Tianyuan realm must have its own spiritual veins, and then wait for the spiritual veins to breed spiritual stones, so that it is more convenient for creatures to practice. Secondly, the combat power of the Tianyuan realm at the same stage is too low. Only Han Li and Yi Xingqian have few opponents in the same level. The others can only be described in 4 words. Useless. He needs to improve their combat power, and the only way to improve strength is to compete and eliminate disadvantages. In the thousands of years since the development of Tianyuan realm, there have been few struggles between cultivators, and it is a harmonious development. He did not intervene, and Tianyuan realm needs more cultivators. Now, the cultivators in Tianyuan realm have reached saturation, and it is time to make some rectifications. So he divided the world he plundered into 2 halves, and refined half into a spiritual vein. This spiritual vein was hidden in a mountain range called Hongmeng Mountain in the Tianyu of Tianyuan realm. This spiritual vein was just formed, and the grade was very low, not even reaching the first grade quality. He divided it into 10% of spiritual energy from the Tianyu and the Diyu to breed this spiritual vein. When this spiritual vein is nurtured, the Tianyuan realm will be able to generate spiritual energy on its own. The creatures of Hongmeng Mountain are also blessed. Living in a place with such rich spiritual energy, the speed of cultivation is fast. The other half of the world was refined by him into a secret realm, named Xuanhuan secret realm. Only creatures below the foundation building stage can enter the Xuanhuan secret realm, and they can practice and find opportunities in the secret realm. In order to ensure that the Xuanhuan secret realm can operate for a long time, let it evolve on its own, and keep all unknown possibilities. This time, he did not completely refine the heavenly way of this world, but retained part of its consciousness and turned it into the main spirit of the Xuanhuan secret realm. The Xuanhuan secret realm is located in the Blue Creek Valley of the Tianyu, and it is opened once every 10 years. The training time is 3 months. Those who fail to come out after the time limit will be forced to come out. There are other rules and regulations, which will be perfected and improved by the main spirit of the Xuanhuan secret realm. Don't kill them all, just ensure a certain survival rate. Thousands of years later, the Tianyuan realm has reached its peak. the upper limit of the nascent soul stage is also full, and the cultivators of each realm have been greatly improved compared to 1,000 years ago. The spiritual vein of Fumeng Mountain has also been promoted. The result is satisfactory to him, but the process is cruel. I don't know how many cultivators have died in the middle to achieve today's achievement. It's all made with blood. Heaven and earth are unkind, and treat all things as straw dogs. This sentence is absolutely correct. However, what makes him feel bad is that Hanli and Yixingchen have explored for 1,000 years and have not found a single plain world. He began to think about this problem. In the end, the conclusion is, why do we have to let them find it? Why not let the other party come to the door? Let the prey come to the door by itself. This method has great risks. It may attract strong enemies. Once it can't cope with it, the Tianyuan realm may be destroyed. There is a gambling element in it, but he still wants to take a gamble. He bets that there will be no world stronger than him coming. He gave Hanli guidance. Not long after, Hanli and Yixingchen led the major formation masters of the Tianyuan realm to arrange various formations on the periphery of the Tianyuan realm. Among them, the defensive formation and the enemy trap formation are the core. After they set up the defensive formation, he cast a spell to expose the Tianyuan realm in the void. 10 years, 20 years, until one day 80 years later, he felt that there were creatures approaching the Tianyuan realm, and there were two of them. Hanli and Yixingchen also felt it. The opponent's strength was not high. Of course, it was not high for the two of them, because the two opponents were both in the early stage of the nascent soul, and it seemed that they had just broken through not long ago. Hanli and Yixingchen looked at each other, then suppressed their strength to the early stage of the nascent soul, and then flew into the void. At the same time, they silently opened the formation, which was really two old sixes. Hello, two Taoist friends. Hanli and Yixingchen came to each other and greeted each other. At the same time, they also saw the appearance of the other party clearly. They were actually two monsters, or fish monsters. It was really strange. It was the first time I saw fish cultivate to such a high level. Could it be that the other world is much higher than the Tianyuan realm, and these two fish monsters are just minions? Thinking of this, Hanli and Yixingchen were extremely cautious. If this is the case, they must not let the other party leave alive, and at the same time, they must keep the Tianyuan realm secret. The sudden appearance of Hanli and Yixingchen scared the two fish monsters. Fortunately, the language between the cultivators is interoperable. At first glance, they saw that Hanli and Yixingchen did not directly attack them, which meant that the other party had no ill intentions, and their nervous hearts relaxed a lot. You two Taoists are right. The two fish spirits returned the greeting to Hanli and Yixingchen. Where are you from and where are you going? Hanli asked first. Nothing much. We two brothers were just wandering around and accidentally stumbled into this place, so we'll leave now. One of the fish spirits said, which had nothing to do with what Hanli asked. It was completely nonsense. The two fish spirits also saw the cultivation of Hanli and Yixingchen, which was also in the early stage of nascent soul. Just like them, 2 against 2, they didn't have much advantage. Chapter 32 World Tree Seedling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regarding Yu Jing's answer, Hanli just smiled. Fellow Taoist, you don't need to lie to me. Regardless of the fact that you can freely shuttle in the void with your nascent soul stage cultivation, you can see from the power of heaven that you carry in your body. The purpose of your coming here is not ordinary. Hanli exposed Yu Jing's lies. Who the hell are you? That the two fish spirits looked at Hanli and Yixingchen warily. They could tell that they had the power of heaven in them. Such people were not ordinary people. Hanli still smiled and said, We have no ill intentions, we just want to ask where the two fellow Taoists came from. We brothers came from a very far away place and walked so far that we forgot the way back. The fish spirit replied, which seemed to be a normal answer, but was actually gibberish. It seems that the two fellow Taoists did not understand their situation. Hanli was a little angry. What's the situation? That the two fish spirits were stunned. Hanli and Yixingchen were as strong as them, in the early stage of nascent soul. The only disadvantage to them was that this was not their home court. They wanted to escape, but Hanli and Yixingchen alone couldn't stop them. You'll know soon. Hanli manifested the activated formation, and Han Li and Yi Xingqian exposed all their cultivation levels. The nascent soul stage is complete. The two fish spirits were completely stunned. The two sixth sons, obviously nascent soul consummation, insisted on hiding their cultivation, and even secretly activated so many formations. How could they escape now? If they could escape, they would be doomed to be pinched to death by the other party. One of the fish spirits sighed and said, "If you want to ask anything, just ask." It's already a piece of fish on the opponent's chopping board. No matter how hard you struggle, it's in vain. It's better to be more relaxed. First question, what are your names? This time Han Li started with the simplest question. My name is Ben Bo Ba, and I am my brother. My name is Ba Bo Ben, and I am my younger brother. We are two brothers. The two fish spirits introduced themselves. This time it was Han Li and Yi Xingqian's turn to be silent. What are these names? However, as practitioners, Han Li and Yi Xingqian quickly came around. Han Li continued to ask the next question. Where are you from? We come from our world. Ben Bo Ba answered immediately. When he finished speaking, Ben Bo Ba realized that he had made a mistake and quickly changed his words. The world we are in is called the fantasy world. It is very far away from here. It took us a long time to find it. Do you know what the highest level of cultivation is in the fantasy world? I know, that without even thinking about it, Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben answered Han Li in unison. What realm is it? This was beyond Han Li's expectation. These two fish spirits knew quite a lot. That's us two brothers, in the early stage of nascent soul. Han Li and Yi Xingqian were speechless for a while, thinking about it. If they were not the top powers in the illusion world, they would not be blessed by the power of heaven. What Han Li and Yi Xingqian couldn't figure out was why the Heavenly Dao of the illusion world chose these two things. They didn't seem very smart. How long has the illusion world existed? Han Li asked again. I don't know, it's been a long, long time. It's been around since our brothers were born. Ben Boba answered seriously. This answer gave Han Li Qian silence again. Was it because he didn't ask clearly enough? I just want to ask, how many years have passed since the monks appeared in the fantasy world? Han Li asked again, and he made it clear enough this time. I know. Before Ben Boba could speak, it was Boboban who answered first this time. How to say? Han Li and Yi Xingqian were quite confused. Looking at Ba Bo Ben's formation, it seemed that they were quite clear about this matter. My two brothers were able to cultivate to perfection only when they saw something by chance, and then there were monks in the fantasy world. Ba Bo Ben told the story of how his two brothers had become spirits, and then added another sentence. My brothers have been practicing for almost 3,000 years now. A thing can make two fish become spirits, and then monks appear in the fantasy world. Han Li and Yi Xingqian were both thinking, what on earth is this thing, so unbelievable. Even he was thinking, I have to say that these two fish spirits are really lucky. Han Li quickly asked, what exactly did you get? It's a seed. It didn't take long for the seed to sprout, and my brothers were able to practice. Later, when my brothers broke through to build the foundation, someone claiming to be the Tao of Heaven suddenly appeared and took away the germinated seeds. After some time, monks began to appear in the fantasy world. Ba Bo Ben summed it up simply, can a seed have such a big effect? Han Li couldn't believe it, but judging from Ba Bo Ben's sincere words, it was true, but he, including Yi Xingqian, seemed to have guessed something. This seed is probably a world tree seed, which later sprouted and grew into a world tree seedling. Only the world tree has such a great effect. The saplings of the world tree provide these two fish with a large amount of spiritual energy, which will lead to the two fish cultivating into spirits. At the same time, he was guessing another thing. The Heavenly Dao of the illusory realm probably woke up after the two fish spirits broke through to the foundation. If the Heavenly Dao of fantasy world had awakened earlier, how could such a precious thing fall into the hands of two fish spirits? No matter what, the world tree seedling must be taken from the fantasy world. If there is a world tree seedling in the Tianyuan world, the upper limit of the Tianyuan world will be greatly increased. He gave Han Li a guide, and Han Li immediately understood. Do you know where this sapling is? Han Li asked. The two fish spirits have the highest cultivation in the fantasy world. If they know where the Heavenly Dao of Fantasy World puts the World Tree Seedling, it is not difficult to take it down. The most worrying thing is that the two fish spirits don't know where the Heavenly Dao of Fantasy World puts the World Tree Seedling, which is more troublesome. I don't know. Sure enough, the worst is still here. Ben Boba and Boboban shook their heads. We don't know where the Heavenly Dao hides it, but... It seems there is a reversal, Hanli quickly asked, but what? Ben Boba explained. This seedling has been with us brothers for thousands of years, and it must still have our breath. In addition, when Tiandao took it away, we secretly made a mark on it. If we find the approximate location, we brothers can use the mark we made to find its location. There is such a thing. Han Li and Xianxia admired it very much. Seeing that these two fish spirits were not very smart, they had the mind to do such a thing. It seems that the two fish spirits have a bad relationship with Tiandao in the fantasy world. It is not known whether it is fortunate or unfortunate for the fantasy world to have these two guys. Chapter 33 Orcs Will Never Be Slaves. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If the fantasy world Heavenly Dao had not completely shielded the World Tree Seedling, it would not be difficult to find the approximate location of the World Tree Seedling. The place with the most abundant spiritual energy in the fantasy world should be the hidden location of the World Tree Seedling. Find the approximate location, and then let the two fish spirits sense it. The success rate is extremely high. Hanli told Xianxia about this idea and let the two fish spirits carry out their plan. The two fish spirits are now in Hanli's hands, and they are naturally obedient. In order to ensure that Hanli and Xianxia are not easily discovered by the fantasy world Heavenly Dao, he imitated the Heavenly Dao power on the two fish spirits, and also blessed Hanli and Xianxia with a Heavenly Dao power, and hid the strength of the two in the early stage of the Golden Core. In this way, if the fantasy world Heavenly Dao does not check carefully, he will not find that Hanli and Xianxia are abnormal. The fantasy world and the Xuanhuan world are indeed far apart, and it took a lot of time for Hanli and his team to reach the fantasy world. Moreover, the fantasy world was hidden and difficult to find. I think it was hidden by the fantasy world Heavenly Dao. No wonder Hanli and Xianxia had been running around for thousands of years but still failed to find it. The fantasy world Heavenly Dao had some tricks, but not many. Hanli, Xianxia, and the two fish spirits were immediately locked by the fantasy world Heavenly Dao the moment they entered the fantasy world. Hanli and Xianxia could feel this feeling. After being locked by the fantasy world Heavenly Dao, Hanli and Xianxia did not have anything wrong and behaved as usual. But after a while, that feeling disappeared. Hanli and Xianxia secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The fantasy world Heavenly Dao did not take action, which meant that the fantasy world Heavenly Dao was concealed by them and did not discover their identities. Although it was concealed this time, it does not mean that it can be concealed every time in the future. It is necessary to act carefully during this period. Then, for some unknown reason, the two fish spirits cooperated with Hanli and the others very well, and the plan went quite smoothly. During this period, Hanli and Xianxia also figured out the situation of the fantasy realm. The fantasy realm is about the same size as the Xuanhuan realm, which he had guessed long ago. Otherwise the fantasy realm would not be able to support two nascent soul cultivators. There are only two fish spirits. Ben Boba and Boboban. In the nascent soul stage in the fantasy realm, there are only two Jindan stage cultivators. In this way, the fantasy realm is the same as the Xuanhuan realm before, with a fault in the middle. The reason why the fantasy realm Heavenly Dao locked on Hanli and Xianxia is probably because their strength is too high and needs to be prevented in advance. It was a bit hasty. If I had known earlier, I would have asked him to suppress the strength of the two to the perfect foundation building. It took several years for them to finally find the place where the World Tree Seedlings were placed. The fantasy realm Heavenly Dao actually placed the World Tree Seedlings in a volcano. What a good plan. Hanli and Xianxia saw the World Tree Seedlings. When they saw the World Tree Seedlings for the first time, they could feel the majestic spiritual energy contained by the World Tree Seedlings. A small sapling can provide a lot of spiritual energy for the fantasy world. When the World Tree sapling grows up, the fantasy world will take off. The World Tree sapling must be taken back to the Xuanhuan world. Hanli and Xianxia's eyes were full of desire, but they did not lose their minds. They found the restrictions around the World Tree sapling, which should be used by the fantasy world Heavenly Dao to prevent some accidents from happening to the World Tree sapling. it is obviously impossible to take the World Tree sapling away without knowing it. Since the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao has set up restrictions here, this is naturally the target of his focus. Once the restrictions are touched, the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao will definitely notice it in the first time, it will definitely be discovered. The best action is to break the restrictions before the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao discovers it and send the World Tree sapling out of the Fantasy World as soon as possible. As long as the World Tree sapling is sent out of the Fantasy World and into the void, the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao will not threaten them. No cultivator in the Fantasy World can embarrass Hanli and Yixingchen. As for the brothers Benboba and Boboban, TSK. The two brothers have already left the Fantasy World organization and officially joined the Tianyuan World camp. Hanli asked them, isn't the Fantasy World their hometown? Why did they change their hearts so quickly? Benboba and Boboban told Hanli that although they are the only ones in the Fantasy World, in fact, the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao has been squeezing the brothers. Not only did they take the World Tree seedlings from the brothers, but since the brothers broke through to the Jindan stage, the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao forced the brothers to work for him, looking for small worlds everywhere in the void for the Fantasy World to swallow up. Without the brothers working hard, would the Fantasy World be as big as it is now? Therefore, the Fantasy World is what it is today thanks to the brothers. The brothers shed blood and sold their lives for the Fantasy World, but the result was the ruthless destruction of the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao. This breath is unbearable. This is why the brothers did not resist when they heard that Hanli was going to take the World Tree seedlings, but actively cooperated. After hearing this, Hanli sincerely felt sorry for the brothers Benboba and Boboban. No matter what they do, they must leave a glimmer of hope. You see, the Fantasy Heavenly Dao reaped what it sowed, and the retribution for its crimes came. It's funny to say that the Heavenly Dao got its retribution. Yixingchen didn't think so. Orcs will never be slaves unless they are provided with food and shelter. The Fantasy Heavenly Dao only knows how to squeeze them, but doesn't know how to give the brothers Benboba and Boboban a sweet treat after each thing they do, even if it's just a big pie. The Fantasy Heavenly Dao is not a qualified Heavenly Dao. So how to break the restriction and send the World Tree seedling out of the Fantasy World before the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao reacts? The method they finally discussed was to destroy the earth, fire, feng shui of the Fantasy World, causing the Fantasy World to fall into chaos for a short time, so that the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao would divert its attention. Then, with the help of his Heavenly Dao power, he forcibly broke the restriction left by the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao and sent the World Tree seedling out of the Fantasy World in one fell swoop. What a good guy. Hanli is getting more and more comfortable with this trick. At the beginning, this trick was something he came up with to deal with the Xuanxin world when he had no other choice. It was a bad trick and an unexpected trick, but who would have thought that Hanli seemed to be addicted to using this trick, and would bring it out once he encountered a problem. Just as Hanli was implementing his plan, he also took action. He took action and reconsolidated the earth, fire, feng shui of the Tianyuan world. While laying down many restrictions, he also separated a mind to monitor it all day. He was a little scared, afraid that one day he would also be hit by this trick. There is a saying that goes, if you often walk by the river, you will get your feet wet. It is better to be cautious. He does not trust anyone, he only trusts him. Other creatures, including Hanli, Yixingchen, etc., are all tools for his growth, but he will not be as ruthless as the Fantasy World Heavenly Dao. Although they are tools, they are also partners, and they should be given. Chapter 34 Xuanyu, First Heaven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The task of detonating the earth, fire, and feng shui in the Fantasy World was handed over to the brothers Benboba and Boboban. Hanli was responsible for destroying the restrictions set by the Heavenly Dao of the Fantasy World, and then threw the seedling of the World Tree to Yixingchen, who was responsible for taking the seedling of the World Tree out of the Fantasy World. Everything was ready. The brothers Benboba and Boboban were more ruthless than expected, and directly called on the creatures in the sea to help them. There were so many creatures in the sea that the Fantasy World was detonated in an instant. The brothers were going to destroy the Fantasy World. Seeing that the brothers Benboba and Boboban had betrayed him, the Heavenly Dao of the Fantasy World was completely furious. While suppressing the earth, fire, and feng shui, it continuously sent down thunder punishments to kill all these creatures. For a time, the Fantasy World was full of charred corpses, and the whole fantasy world was wailing, it can be seen that the Heavenly Dao of the fantasy world is moody and does not care about the creatures in the world at all. Kill if you want to kill, and destroy if you want to destroy. Why did you betray me? That the fantasy Heavenly Dao sent a message to the brothers Benboba and Boboban, and the anger of the fantasy Heavenly Dao could be heard from the message. The brothers Benboba and Boboban did not deceive the fantasy Heavenly Dao, and directly retorted. You not only took away our things, but also treated us like animals. Why should I betray you? Do you really have no idea? You too are animals. The fantasy world belongs to me. There is nothing I can't take. The fantasy Heavenly Dao did not admit his fault. Everything in the fantasy world belonged to him. He could take whatever he wanted. Did he need to listen to the opinions of these ants? Until now, the fantasy Heavenly Dao still believed that he was right and that it was the brothers Benboba and Boboban who betrayed him. Anyone who betrayed him must die. The fantasy Heavenly Dao was ready to send down the strongest thunder punishment to kill the brothers Benboba and Boboban. At this time, a loud noise erupted under the volcano hiding the seedling of the world tree. The fantasy world Heavenly Dao immediately sensed that the restriction he had set was destroyed. Boom! The fantasy world Heavenly Dao was completely angry, as if it was out of his control, and the thunder tribulation rolled down, making the already devastated fantasy world even worse. The number of creatures in the fantasy world was decreasing rapidly. He could no longer think so much. He wanted to stop the world tree seedling. As long as the world tree seedling was in hand, I believe that it would not be long before the fantasy world would be restored to its original state. On the contrary, once the world tree seedling was stolen, there would be no spiritual energy to nourish the fantasy world, and the fantasy world would never be able to recover, and he would fall into a deep sleep. Unfortunately, by the time the fantasy world Heavenly Dao reacted, it was too late. At the moment the restriction was destroyed, Hanli instantly grabbed the world tree seedling and threw it to Yixingchen. After getting the world tree seedling, Yixingchen flew away from the fantasy world at the speed of light. Seeing that the seedling of the world tree was completely out of his range, the Heavenly Dao of the fantasy world entered a violent state and no longer suppressed the earth, fire, wind and water. The Heavenly Dao of the fantasy world gradually lost consciousness, and the fantasy world entered a self-destruction mode. If this continues, it won't be long before all the creatures in the fantasy world will perish. The brothers Benboba and Boboban looked at each other. Let's go too. The brothers Benboba and Boboban also fled the fantasy world. The brothers can only ensure their own safety, and the brothers are powerless to do anything about other creatures in the fantasy world, so let them live and die with the fantasy world. The two men and two monsters returned to the Xuanhuan world, and the seedling of the world tree was also handed over to him. He sent a message to the brothers Benboba and Boboban, telling them that the quota for Yuanying period cultivators in the Xuanhuan world is full and they cannot accept the brothers for the time being. This acceptance does not mean that the brothers are not wanted, but that the brothers can live in the Xuanhuan world first, but they do not have a local household registration, which means they are black households. When the Xuanhuan realm is promoted again and can accommodate more places, he will apply for local household registration for the two brothers. The two brothers will not wait too long for this day. Hanli, Yixingchen and other powerful people in the Xuanhuan realm are working together to drag the fantasy realm towards the Xuanhuan realm. The problem in the middle is that this process takes a long time. Due to the madness of the fantasy realm Heavenly Dao, the earth, fire, feng shui was not suppressed, resulting in a complete outbreak of the fantasy realm earth, fire, feng shui. At this time, all the creatures in the fantasy realm perished, leaving only a ruin. The fantasy realm Heavenly Dao was also backfired and dissipated day by day. When the fantasy realm entered the Xuanhuan realm, the fantasy realm Heavenly Dao had already perished, and could not be annexed by him, and could not obtain the power of rules. It was a pity, but think about it, being the Heavenly Dao should not be too worried, and this trip was full of gains. He got the seedling of the world tree and the fantasy realm. Although the fantasy realm is already a ruin, it is not a problem for him at all. With the blessing of the world tree seedling, the spiritual energy in the Xuanhuan realm is enough to restore the vitality of the fantasy realm. Hanli and his team spent 10 years to guide the fantasy realm into the Xuanhuan realm. He refined the fantasy realm as soon as possible. After refining the fantasy realm, he divided the fantasy realm into two halves. One half added a new domain to the Xuanhuan realm. He thought that the fantasy realm was now barren and it was not good to directly integrate it into the Tianyuan realm. Moreover, the heaven realm and the earth realm were large enough, so it was better to open another domain. He named the new domain Xian Realm. After Xian Realm came out, he readjusted the proportion of spiritual energy in the Tianyuan realm. The heaven realm and the earth realm each accounted for 20%, and the Fuming Mountain spiritual vein and Xian realm each accounted for 30%. I believe that Xian realm will soon be able to restore vitality and be suitable for the survival of living beings. The other half was refined by him into the first heaven of Tianyuan realm. He didn't want any living being to know about the first heaven of Tianyuan realm, including Hanli and Yixingchen. He planted the seedling of the world tree on the first heaven. The seedling of the world tree provides a huge amount of spiritual energy to the first heaven. The first heaven will definitely surpass the heaven in the future. This is a layout he made in advance. The fantasy world was integrated into the Tianyuan realm, and the upper limit of the Tianyuan realm increased a lot, and a lot of high-level places were added. The upper limit of the Yuanying stage increased from 9 to 12, the number of Jindan stage increased from 300 to 500, it's a bit regrettable that they can't break through the upper limit of the Yuanying stage. Hanli and Yixingchen have to wait. It would be great if they could refine the heavenly way of the fantasy world. 3 more places were added to the Yuanying stage, and he immediately handled local household registration for the brothers Ben Boba and Boboban. You can't go back on your promise, and the brothers Ben Boba and Boboban made a lot of efforts to get the world tree seedling, otherwise, the world tree seedling would not be so easy to get. 2 places for the nascent soul stage were taken up at once, and only 1 place was left. It depends on which Jindan stage cultivator can quickly break through and take up this place, otherwise it will take a long time to wait. The cultivators of Tianyuan realm did not disappoint him. In just 10 years, the places for the nascent soul stage and Jindan stage were all filled. Perhaps it was because Tianyuan realm had been settled for a long time, and it had a bit of the flavor of fighting. Chapter 35 Void Wormhole. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hanli and Yixingchen, who are in the realm above nascent soul, have already figured out how to become gods. The so-called spiritual transformation is spiritual consciousness. To put it bluntly, this stage is the cultivation of spiritual consciousness. The principles of out-of-body and distraction are actually the same, they both focus on cultivating spiritual consciousness. The biggest problem now is for him to improve the power of rules. In fact, the only way to improve the power of rules is not to annex other heavenly ways, it is also possible to understand the power of rules yourself. However, he is too slow to comprehend the power of rules, and his Xuanhui can only scratch the surface. How long will $1 last? The 1 yuan society lasted 129,600 years, nearly 130,000 years. It takes 130,000 years to understand a little bit of the rules. To be honest, if the Tianyuan world can go on peacefully, he can definitely afford to wait. According to the natural movement of Tianyuan realm, it will take at least tens of billions of years before it dies. 130,000 years is just water in the face of tens of billions of years. The problem is, Tianyuan world cannot afford to wait. The Tianyuan world has turned on the fishing mode, and his position is exposed in the void. A strong person might come knocking on his door one day, therefore, he must improve his strength as soon as possible. Besides, he didn't want to be a salty fish and just stayed quietly in Tianyuan realm, otherwise, he would not have done so many things. However, it is too difficult to find other worlds in the void. It took another 100 years, but Hanli, Yixingchen, including the brothers Ben Boba and Ba Boban, found nothing at all. After hundreds of years of nourishment, Xuanyu has become suitable for living creatures to survive. It's just about survival. It's not possible to give birth to a monk at the moment. It still takes some time to develop. Both brothers do know a place and can travel there. We can find a new world. After searching hard to no avail, the brothers Ben Boba and Ba Boben finally told Hanli and Yixingchen what they knew. Where? Hanli asked curiously, thinking at the same time that the place Ben Boba and Ba Boben were talking about must be unusual, otherwise they wouldn't have delayed talking for so long. When the 2 brothers were traveling in the void, they accidentally discovered a void wormhole. If we follow the void wormhole to search, we might be able to discover other new worlds. The 2 brothers used to work for the heavenly way of the illusion realm. They didn't want to sacrifice their lives, so they didn't dare to enter. If you want to go, you should make some preparations as soon as possible. The two brothers feel that this void wormhole is unusual. Brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben told Han Li and Yi Xingchen what happened. Of course, he was listening too. He couldn't help but think, void wormhole. It's quite interesting. It takes some preparation. Han Li and Yi Xingchen nodded. They were not afraid. Brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben told them the matter, and they would be sorry if they didn't go. I think he also meant this. This time, it was no longer Han Li and Yi Xingchen who called three Yuanying Taoist friends together. One is the ancestor of the Dali royal family. Yes, it has been nearly 2,000 years, and the Dali dynasty has not yet perished. The immortal Cultivation dynasty was extraordinary and could not be compared to the previous mortal kingdoms. To put it this way, Lu Shua was all smiles. Who could have imagined that his descendants would be so brave? The other two nascent soul stages are not human races, but demon races. One is the white tiger in Changbai Mountain, the tiger. Another one is a fox, a female fox. The fox demon is naturally charming, but he doesn't dare to be presumptuous in front of Han Li and Yi Xingchen. No one in the Tianyuan world knows the names of Han Li and Yi Xingchen. With the strength of these two people, killing them all is as easy as playing chicken. No one knows how strong these two are now, and no one dares to try. The tiger is a white tiger, the king of animals. Naturally, he is not interested in foxes, so it's okay if he doesn't eat them. Not to mention the two brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben. The two fish spirits like to play with each other the most on weekdays. As for women, they are not as fun as the two brothers Fish Gills. There are a total of 12 nascent soul stages in the Tianyuan world, and 7 of them have gone through this time, exceeding half. They are still the most powerful in combat. If they all fell into the wormhole in the void, he would still be very distressed. For this reason, he prepared some life-saving means for the 7 people. Everyone was ready to go, and under the leadership of the two brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben, the 7 of them flew towards the void. It took several months for 7 to reach the location. Just as the brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben said, there is a void wormhole here. The wormhole is not big, only a few feet wide, but the chaotic energy contained in the wormhole is dozens or even 100 times greater than that in the void, making it impossible for spiritual consciousness to detect it. How do you get in? They have to rely on the power of heaven to resist the turbulence when traveling in the void. The chaotic energy in the wormhole is so powerful that if they rush forward like this, they will definitely be torn into ashes. No, there is no ashes at all. No wonder the brothers Ben Bo Ba and Ba Bo Ben have never dared to speak out about this matter. It was all for their own good. However, Han Li was unwilling to go in to investigate even though he was here. This place is too risky. You have all seen it and you all know it. I won't force you. Those who want to quit can quit now, and Tiandao will not blame you. If you don't want to quit and don't listen to the instructions after entering later, you will be responsible for the consequences. Han Li said to the 6 people, it is really dangerous inside. If you are not careful you will lose your life. Some things must be said in advance. He has no objection to anyone who wants to retreat now. At that time, he came to them to increase the success rate. After all, there is strength in numbers, and he did not force it. But who knows that this place is so dangerous that it is not enough to deal with it with more people. On the contrary, Han Li can deal with it better with fewer people. Yi Xingchen did not speak, but his meaning was very clear. He would go wherever Han Li went, and it was impossible to escape alone. The ancestor of the royal family of Dali also spoke. Dali can be what it is today, all thanks to the merits of Xuanhuan. Even if I die, I will not retreat. The ancestor of the royal family of Dali also said that he would not withdraw. Otherwise, he would not have the face to see the ancestors of the Lu family. I will not withdraw. Xuanjun also looked sure. Regardless of the fact that it had received the grace of Han Li's preaching, it was the king of animals and was never afraid of any difficulties. Just for this reason, Xuanjun would never withdraw. Besides, Changbai Mountain is guarded by Lurong, so nothing will happen. So it is assured, Lurong now has the strength of a perfect golden elixir. Apart from these Yuanying masters, Lurong can handle other cultivators, so there is no need to worry. I will not quit either. Seeing that Yi Xingchen and Xuanjun had no intention of leaving, the fox demon thought about it and decided to stay. The fox demon originally wanted to quit. The fox clan had a weak foundation, and she was able to achieve the Yuanying with the strength of the entire clan. In the fox clan, except for her Yuanying, there is only one middle stage golden elixir, and most of the others are in chi refining and foundation building, which is not good enough. Once she dies, the situation of the fox clan is not optimistic. However, she still wants to fight, for herself and for the entire fox clan. Chapter 37, Transformation into Spirit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Han Li and others have been exploring this world for several years, and finally found out the situation of this world. This world is called the wilderness, he. After all, Han Li and others have a narrow vision. The wilderness is not simple at all. In terms of size, the area of the wilderness is 10 times that of the current Tianyuan realm. Wow, it's really big. Han Li and others couldn't believe it at first, but it's the fact. Secondly, the wilderness has a complete system of the cultivation world. It's also here that Han Li and Yixingchen have verified the 8 realms of cultivation, refining qi, building foundation, golden elixir, yuanying, transformation, returning to the void, Mahayana, and crossing the tribulation, combining the above conditions. This means that the wilderness is a middle world. In the last era, there were countless strong men in the wilderness, and there were countless cultivators who crossed the tribulation, but I don't know when the strong men who crossed the tribulation began to disappear, and all the strong men in the Mahayana period were standing still and could not move forward, and slowly, the strong men in the return to the void realm could not break through to the Mahayana period. Up to now, the strongest cultivator in the wilderness realm has reached the perfection of the spiritual transformation and cannot go any further. This is good news. The strongest cultivator in the wilderness realm is only the perfection of the spiritual transformation cultivator, which is much less threatening to Han Li and his group. Some people in the wilderness realm speculate that the wilderness realm is an abandoned world and is gradually heading towards extinction. This speculation is similar to Han Li's speculation at the time. There is indeed no Heavenly Dao in the wilderness realm. Han Li does not know the specific reason. The strength of the wilderness realm is far beyond theirs, and they are not able to deal with it. They need to go back and report to him to see what to do next. Han Li went back alone, and the other 6 stayed to continue to monitor the movements of the wilderness realm. After hearing Han Li's account, he was very satisfied with this action. Although he lost a little origin, if he could get the wilderness realm, he could make up for it completely. It doesn't matter if there is no Heavenly Dao in the wilderness realm. As long as there are rules in the wilderness realm, he can still devour and refine it and break through the upper limit of the Tianyuan realm. Later, he asked Han Li if he could remember all the coordinates. Han Li naturally wrote down all the coordinates, and this time he returned along the coordinates. Afterwards, he divided 7 more Heavenly Dao origins to Han Li. This time he spent a lot of money. 7 Heavenly Dao origins were given to each of them, and the 7 people could use the Heavenly Dao origins to force a space jump on the wasteland. As long as the wasteland can be pulled into the territory of the Tianyuan realm, these 7 origins will not be wasted. Han Li did as he instructed. Back in the wasteland, Han Li divided the Heavenly Dao origins to 6 people and told them about the implementation plan. The 7 people were ready and began to use space jumps on the wasteland. There is no Heavenly Dao in the wasteland, and there is no interference from external factors. This time the plan was implemented smoothly, and the wasteland was pulled into the territory of the Tianyuan realm. Of course, during the space jump, the great powers in the God transformation stage in the wasteland felt something unusual. But they did not have the Heavenly Dao power given by the Heavenly Dao, and could not break through the void. There was something wrong with the wilderness, but they had no idea what it was, so they could only wait. The moment the wilderness entered the Tianyuan realm, he immediately took action. First, he took back the remaining Heavenly Dao origin. The Heavenly Dao origin was too precious, and not a single drop could be wasted. Secondly, he did not rush to refine the wilderness, but began to devour the rules in the wilderness. The wilderness was too big, and there were rules, so it would take too long to refine it. It would be better to devour the rules in the wilderness first, strengthen his strength first, and then refine the wilderness, so that the time spent would be much shorter. After he began to devour, the great masters of the God transformation stage in the wilderness felt a palpitation. They felt that their communication with the heaven and earth was becoming more and more confused, and there were even signs of falling from the realm. could it be that another new era has arrived, and the wilderness no longer allows new god transformation stage cultivators to appear? This was their guess. After several years, the Yuanying stage cultivators in the wilderness also had this feeling. After a few years, the Jindan stage cultivators in the wilderness also felt the same way. No, this is not the arrival of a new era. The arrival of a new era is definitely not like this. At this time, the Huashan stage masters in the wilderness dared to be sure. The wilderness did not enter a new era, but something went wrong. The top forces in the wilderness began to cooperate and wanted to find the source of the problem. If this continues, the wilderness will become the Dharma ending age and will no longer be suitable for cultivation. However, their efforts are destined to be in vain. After a few years, the foundation building cultivators in the wilderness also felt this feeling. After a few more years, no creatures with spiritual roots were born in the wilderness. It took 30 years for him to devour all the rules in the wilderness. Now, he has become stronger again, and the Tianyuan realm can accommodate cultivators in the Huashan stage. At the first moment, Hanli and Yixingchen no longer suppressed their realms and broke through to the Huashan stage. From now on, the Tianyuan realm has its own Huashan stage cultivators. It's a good thing. However, the number of places for the transformation stage cultivators that the Tianyuan realm can accommodate is still pitifully small, only 9, excluding Hanli and Yixingchen. There are only 7 places for the transformation stage. The number of places for the nascent soul stage has increased a lot, with as many as 500, which is enough for a period of time. There is no limit on the realm below the nascent soul stage. In other words, in theory, all the creatures in the Tianyuan realm can cultivate to the golden core perfection. Of course, this is only a theoretical possibility and it is impossible to happen. Lifespan is the biggest limiting obstacle for living beings. He has devoured all the rules in the wilderness, and the next step is to refine the entire wilderness. Before that, he has to consider how to place the cultivators in the wilderness. There is no need to consider cultivators below the nascent soul stage. They are just a group of ants, and the Tianyuan realm can fully accommodate them. It is the same for cultivators above the nascent soul stage. He has explored the cultivators above the nascent soul stage in the wilderness. The wilderness has a deep foundation, with 3,000 nascent soul cultivators and 67 spiritualization cultivators. The Tianyuan realm cannot accommodate so many people. If all the cultivators above the nascent soul stage are killed, he will feel a little distressed. Leaving these people behind can not only enhance the strength of the Tianyuan realm, but also greatly promote the development of the Tianyuan realm system with their personal insights and the inheritance left by their ancestors. This is the reason for his choice, just because it is completely unnecessary if the realm is high. As long as Tianyuan realm is given some time, it can also reach this strength. Finally, he sent Hanli to the wilderness realm to talk with the top sects and the divine transformation stage cultivators in the wilderness realm. If they were willing to cooperate, he could spare their lives, and the Tianyuan realm would be their home in the future. If these people were obsessed and could not understand the situation, don't blame him for being cruel. At worst, it would be like the fantasy realm. And it would become a ruin and start over again. There was so much spiritual energy in the Tianyuan realm, and with the world tree seedling in hand, there was no need to worry that it could not be raised. Chapter 38. Not taking a single needle or thread. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hanli followed his instructions and went to the wilderness to talk with these powerful beings alone. Now Hanli is also in the God transformation stage, and the wilderness has no rules now, so these powerful beings in the God transformation stage cannot exert their peak strength. Therefore, Hanli was not afraid and went there openly. Hanli successfully met with several top sects in the wilderness and many powerful beings in the God transformation stage. Regarding Hanli's arrival, they all asked in confusion, "Who are you? Why did you invite us together?" That they also saw Hanli's cultivation level, the early stage of God transformation. The God transformation stage is not too many in the wilderness, but not too few. In the wilderness, all the cultivators in the God transformation stage know each other. As for Hanli, they have never seen or heard of him, and he doesn't seem to be a person in the wilderness. In this regard, Hanli was not embarrassed, and smiled awkwardly. "I am Hanli, from Fulong Temple." Fulong Temple. Hanli. Hearing these two names, everyone shook their heads. They had never heard of them. It seems that he is not from the wilderness. You all guessed correctly. I am not a cultivator from the wilderness realm. I am from the Tianyuan realm. Hanli did not continue to play dumb with them and directly told them his origin. Hanli is from outside the domain. All the great powers frowned, and their expressions were not very good. They were on guard against Hanli. Outside the domain, tell me your purpose, that some people could not help it. I came here to inform you that those who join the Tianyuan realm with peace of mind can live, otherwise. Hanli stopped talking here. They are all smart people, how could they not understand what he meant, say that Hanli was sent to communicate with them, but in fact, it was just to issue a notice. There is nothing to discuss, they can only accept it, if they do not accept it, there is only one way to die. Arrogant, that as soon as Hanli finished speaking, a great power in the God transformation stage stood up and scolded Hanli. Hanli is just a little early stage of God transformation, and everyone present is his predecessor. How could Hanli have the courage to talk to them like this? Soon, they understood where Hanli got the courage from. Just after this great master of the God transformation stage finished scolding Hanli, a thunderbolt struck down from the sky above the wilderness realm. The force was so strong that it smashed this cultivator of the God transformation realm into pieces. A great master of the God transformation realm fell just like that. At this moment, none of the great masters present dared to breathe, it was really too domineering. They started fighting as soon as they disagreed with each other. There was no room for negotiation at all. Fellow Daoist, what is the Tianyuan realm? Why do you want us to join? What is the reason? Fellow Daoist, you must explain it to us. Let's die knowingly. There were still some brave people in the wilderness realm who stood up to ask questions. He didn't believe that asking questions like this would also bring about a killing disaster. If he really suffered a killing disaster, it meant that Hanli was not easy to get along with. It would not be easy for him to go to the Tianyuan realm. It would be better for him to die and end it all. Hanli nodded. Of course I have to explain it to you clearly. The fundamental reason has to start from your wilderness world. Let's start from our wilderness world. Is there any problem with the wilderness world? These people were puzzled. Why did the wilderness world get involved? Wasn't it because Hanli, a person from outside the domain, was extremely shameless and wanted them to surrender as soon as they came and be struck by lightning for saying a word? Your wilderness world is very big, more than 10 times larger than our Tianyuan world. The cultivators in your wilderness world are very strong. In ancient times, there were countless strong people who passed the tribulation. On the other hand, our Tianyuan world has only been in cultivation for thousands of years, and the highest cultivation level is only that of the poor, who has just broken through to the stage of transformation. Compared with your wilderness world, the wilderness world is much, much worse. Hanli briefly told them about the situation of the Tianyuan world. When everyone heard it, was the Tianyuan world so weak? When they listened with a discerning eye, it seemed that Hanli was praising them, but the more they listened, the more they felt something was wrong. Suddenly, they figured it out. Tianyuan realm is so weak, and Huang realm is so strong, but their lives and deaths are in Hanli's hands. Is Hanli deliberately mocking them? If Hanli knew what they were thinking, he could only say that they were thinking too much. Hanli was not mocking them, but stating a fact to them, the fact of why Huang realm declined. But Hanli made a turn. After that, Huang realm lived up to its glory and gradually declined. In this era, no one in Huang realm could break through to return to void, and the highest level of cultivation stayed at the perfection of the spiritualization stage. And in our Tianyuan realm, in just a few thousand years, we have gone from qi refining to foundation building, then to golden pill, yuanying, and now to the spiritualization stage. Everyone, do you know why? Hanli asked, and no one present spoke, and no one refuted Hanli's words. They knew in their hearts that Hanli was telling the truth. Seeing that no one spoke, Hanli continued, some of you know the reason, but you just don't want to believe it. Is the wilderness realm really an abandoned world? Finally, someone spoke again. As Hanli said, they knew something, but there was no evidence to prove it, so they didn't want to believe it. I don't know whether the wilderness realm is abandoned, but I can tell you that there is no Heavenly Dao in the wilderness realm, and this is why the wilderness realm is now in the hands of the Tianyuan realm. Everyone, even if there is no Tianyuan realm, the wilderness realm will still decline, it will just survive for a longer period of time. Why there is no Heavenly Dao in the wilderness realm, this question Hanli also wants to know. He is the same. There are many doubts, for example, why the void wormhole leads to the wilderness. Is it a coincidence? If it is a coincidence, it is too coincidental, it must not be that simple. What are the benefits of joining the Tianyuan realm? Someone else asked. They heard that Hanli said so much, just to let them join the Tianyuan realm. Of course there are. First of all, the Tianyuan realm has a very high potential. If you join the Tianyuan realm, you will get better development and break through to a higher level. Secondly, Hanli began to use his talents and painted a big pie for them to eat. In short, joining the Tianyuan realm guarantees that they will not regret it. Of course, they are all top powers in the wilderness, and they have lived for thousands of years. How could they be brainwashed by Hanli? If they can accept it, it means that the benefits given by Hanli are enough to impress them. They are all a group of old foxes. The weakness is that except for being afraid of death, they are all very shrewd. How can we cooperate with you? That these gods asked again. Their thoughts are not so deep-rooted. Perhaps it is related to inheritance. In ancient times, after the cultivators passed the tribulation, they would ascend to another world and seek a higher realm. So, when Hanli said that the Tianyuan realm could help them break through to the return to void realm, they were already tempted. They asked Hanli this because they wanted to hear what Hanli's request was. As long as it was not excessive and did not empty their family's assets, they could agree to it. The Tianyuan realm will not take a single needle or thread from you. That these powerful people were all stunned. Was Hanli's words a compliment or a derogatory word? Not taking a single needle or thread means not taking anything from them, or taking everything except a needle or thread. If it was the former, they would definitely accept it with pleasure. If it was the latter, a fierce battle would definitely be unavoidable. Chapter 39 Return to the Void. You are listening at novelfull.audio. But Hanli made a turn. It was this turn that made everyone nervous, fearing that Hanli would say that he would take everything except a needle and a thread. After arriving at the Tianyuan realm, you need to be separated. Hanli's words calmed everyone's nervous hearts. Just separate them. If it was just this condition, it didn't seem unacceptable. Can you tell me more about it? Of course. Next, Hanli told everyone in the wilderness realm about the specific arrangements. In summary, there are only 2 points. The wilderness realm is too big, and it is not conducive to the development of the Tianyuan realm to include it all in the Tianyuan realm. The wilderness realm needs to be divided into several domains. These sects in the wilderness realm need to be broken up and divided into various domains. For the sake of fairness, a lottery method can be used, and everything depends on fate. Who is the European emperor and who is the unlucky one depends on luck. After explaining it to them, all the people in the wilderness realm agreed. After the conversation between the two sides, he began to refine the wilderness realm. A part of the wasteland was divided into 5 domains by him, named Xuanyu, Yuyu, Zhouyu, Hongyu, and Huangyu. So far, there are 8 domains in Tianyuan realm: heaven, earth, Xian, Huang, Yu, Zhou, Hong, and Huangyu. Then, another part of the wasteland was refined by him into 7 spiritual veins. These 7 spiritual veins were placed in the 7 domains of earth, Xian, Huang, Yu, Zhou, Hong, and Huangyu. Now, each of the 8 domains has a spiritual vein. Another part of the wasteland was refined by him into a secret realm, named Lingtai Secret Realm, which can only be entered by foundation-building cultivators. This time, the main spirit in the Lingtai Secret Realm was evolved by him by dividing some of the origin of the Heavenly Dao. In the future, the Lingtai Secret Realm will be managed by the main spirit, and he will not interfere. Again, don't kill them all, just keep a certain survival rate. Finally, the remaining bit of the wasteland was integrated into the first heaven by him. The whole process took him 100 years. It took a long time, but the harvest was full. The wilderness world was completely annexed by the Tianyuan world. Now, the Tianyuan world has become a middle world. Up to now, the upper limit that the Tianyuan world can bear is as follows: 3 cultivators in the return to void realm. However, he does not plan to open this realm for the time being. Hanli and Yixingchen have only recently reached the god transformation stage, and are still far from the return to void realm. if the return to void realm is opened, it is likely that these powerful people in the wilderness world will snatch them all. He does not trust these people for the time being. The upper limit of the God transformation stage has increased dramatically, reaching 999. It is also because of the large number of quotas that he changed the local household registration of all the cultivators in the original wilderness world. From now on, they are all locals of the Xuanhuan world. As for these great masters of the God transformation in the original wilderness world, he chose the fishing mode. He made these great masters of the God transformation feel that there is a bottleneck for breakthrough, but he just doesn't let them break through successfully. In this way, Han Li is not lying to them. Tianyuan realm can break through to return to void, but you can't break through. Who can you blame? What a despicable local. The upper limit of the number of Yuanying stage has reached 100,000, which is enough for the development of Tianyuan realm. There is no limit for cultivators below Yuanying stage. The development of Tianyuan realm seems to be thriving, but in fact, after a wave of growth, the spiritual energy of Tianyuan realm can no longer support it. In the final analysis, it is still because the wasteland is too big, which brings a 1000% expansion to Tianyuan realm. The concentration of spiritual energy in Tianyuan realm, which was originally rich in spiritual energy, has become much thinner under this expansion. It needs to supply 8 domains, 8 spiritual veins, and 2 secret realms. After all, the distribution ratio of the Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array is completely insufficient. Fortunately, there is a seedling of the world tree in the first layer as a later energy source, which relieves some of the pressure for him. Otherwise I really don't know what to do. Next time, I must not do this, I must do what I can. It also reflects a problem. The Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array needs to be upgraded again, otherwise the speed of conversion of spiritual energy cannot keep up with the supply. Secondly, after the Tianyuan realm becomes the middle world, another Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array can be built. In this way, a Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array can supply 4 domains, 4 spiritual veins, and 1 secret realm, which is completely sufficient. This matter still needs to be handed over to Han Li and Yixingchen. He is not at ease with others. Before that, he needs to improve the strength of Han Li and Yixingchen. After more than 100 years of cultivation, Han Li and Yixingchen have only reached the middle stage of the God transformation. The middle stage of the God transformation is not enough. He wants Han Li and Yixingchen to become the first batch of cultivators in the return to the void realm. He gave Han Li and Yixingchen the origin of the Heavenly Dao to help them break through quickly. After Han Li and Yixingchen refined the origin of the Heavenly Dao, their cultivation was like turning on a plug-in. It took only 20 years to break through to the late stage of the God transformation. It took another 30 years to break through to the perfection of the God transformation. After that, he secretly opened the return to void realm, and Han Li and Yixingchen successfully broke through to the return to void realm in 50 years. 2 quotas for the return to void realm in the Tianyuan realm were occupied, and the remaining quota was decided to be given to the former God transformation stage great powers in the wilderness realm. After dragging it out for so long, it is necessary to give them some sweetness, so that they can develop in the Tianyuan realm with peace of mind. In fact, his approach was right. These God transformation perfect great powers in the wilderness realm, who came to the Tianyuan realm but could not break through, had complaints in their hearts, and many people guessed that Han Li was lying to them. However, due to the situation, they did not say it openly. When they saw Han Li and Yixingchen making rapid progress and even breaking through to the return to void realm, at this time, they were extremely angry and guessed that Han Li must have used all of them to fulfill himself. Otherwise how could Han Li break through so quickly? They had already colluded in private and prepared to form an alliance to denounce Han Li and ask Han Li to give an explanation. As a result, before the alliance was established, one of them broke through and successfully reached the return to void realm. The sudden breakthrough made them unable to do anything. Everyone was thinking, is it their fault? It's not that they can't break through, but that this opportunity has not come. All the great masters who have reached the perfect spiritualization realm without breaking through began to retreat and impact the return to void realm. The alliance collapsed without attacking. They died before they could achieve their goal. These people settled down, and Han Li and Yixingchen had time to make the Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array. It took 3 years, and the original Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array had been upgraded, and the speed of converting spiritual energy was several times higher than before. The newly built Zhoutian Xingdou Great Array was also completed one after another. He readjusted the proportions again. And one Zhoutian Xingdou great array supplied 4 domains, 4 spiritual veins, and 1 secret realm. The supply of world tree seedlings was withdrawn by him to continue nourishing the first heaven. The Tianyuan realm has returned to its previous form. It only takes some time for the spiritual energy of the Tianyuan realm to become rich again, which is conducive to the cultivation of living beings. However, this is a later story. He has an important thing to do now. It is difficult to find other worlds around the void where the Tianyuan realm is located. It is futile to let Hanli and Yixingchen continue to search, and it is also a waste of the power of the Heavenly Dao, which is not cost-effective for him. Based on this consideration, he made a bold decision. He will use a void transfer on the Tianyuan realm. Void transfer is similar to space jump. The difference is that space jump can locate and move, consumes less, and can be used multiple times, while void transfer is not possible. Void transfer occurs randomly, has a long distance, and consumes a lot of energy. Each time it is used, he needs to recuperate for a long time before he can use it again. He is worried that after using void transfer, the Tianyuan realm will appear in front of other advanced worlds. At that time, he will have no energy left to escape, so where should he go? Chapter 40, World Building Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. He used the void transfer on the Tianyuan realm. This time, he also made the right bet, and the Tianyuan realm did not encounter other worlds. However, he saw that there were 2 deserted planets in the void around the Tianyuan realm. These 2 planets were not big, less than 1/10 of the Tianyu, but even so, he was still very happy. This was something he had never seen in the previous void. If these 2 deserted planets were integrated into the Tianyuan realm, the upper limit of the number of people who could return to the void could be increased. He thought of a way. It was time for these people in the deserted world to work, and they could not just lie there and do nothing, nor could Hanli and Yixingchen do everything themselves. Someone needed to share the burden. He conveyed the plan to Hanli. Not long after, Hanli issued a notice to the top forces and great powers in the Tianyuan realm. Fulong Temple can help the perfect cultivators of the spiritualization realm break through the return to the void realm. Those who are interested can come to Fulong Temple to discuss. This notice was very concise, and the response was huge. After hearing the news, all the top forces in the Tianyuan realm, as well as the cultivators who were in seclusion preparing to impact the return to void realm, rushed to Fulong Temple. In less than 3 days, all the powerful cultivators gathered at Fulong Temple. The return to void realm. The temptation is too great. Since they can't break through, they can only come to Fulong Temple to find a way out. Although they don't have a good impression of Hanli, there is one thing they believe, that is, Hanli has done what he promised. In other words, since the immortal master Lin Tian, all the successive masters of Fulong Temple have done what they promised. Fulong Temple has become a benchmark in the Tianyuan realm. Welcome all Taoist friends to Fulong Temple. I won't say much nonsense, so as not to delay your time. Let's get straight to the topic of today. Hanli first made an off-site speech to everyone, and then went straight to the topic, without making big promises. Hanli is usually so direct. This time, I summoned all of you to come here for the development of the Tianyuan realm, and also to give you an opportunity to be promoted. I have 100 sets of Tiandao battle suits in my hand. Wearing them can resist the turbulence of the void and travel through the void. The validity period is 1 year. Of course, there are restrictions on cultivators here, and only cultivators above the nascent soul stage can do this. The task assigned to you is to find abandoned planets or other new worlds in the void. Every 5 abandoned planets can be exchanged for a place in the return to void realm. A small world can be exchanged for 2 places in the return to void realm. A medium world can be exchanged for 5 places in the return to void realm. Hanli explained the task requirements to everyone. The Tiandao battle suit was created by him, and the battle suit is covered with the power of the Tiandao. The validity period is 1 year. After 1 year, the power of the Tiandao will disappear, and he needs to cover it with the power of the Tiandao again. Originally, only 2 abandoned planets were needed to increase a place in the return to void realm, but for Hanli, 5 were required. I don't know whether it was he who set the price or Hanli who changed it later. 150% profit. This deal is worthwhile. I have a few questions to ask the master. After Hanli finished speaking, someone began to ask questions. Please go ahead. The first question is, if we find a world, how can we take it back? They don't have the ability to take back a world yet, and it will be useless even if they find a world. In response to this question, Hanli replied, if you Taoist friends find a deserted planet, you can leave your mark on the planet, and then inform us to check. If the situation is true, we will record it for you. You don't have to bring it at all, we will take it ourselves. As for small worlds and medium worlds, they cannot be marked, and can only be based on first come first served. Whoever registers first will own it. Of course, this may be unfair, but you Taoist friends also know that it is impossible to be absolutely fair in anything. Do you have any objections? That everyone present shook their heads. No objection. Han Li's words made sense. Besides, if there are objections, they should be suppressed. The final right of interpretation belongs to Han Li. The second question is, what if the number we gather is not enough for the exchange? For example, if there is just one missing from the 5 abandoned planets, what should we do? That this person raised a very sharp question. If we can't gather them all, wouldn't we just be working for Han Li? Han Li also gave an answer to this question, saying, for this problem, I have also made some solutions, and I won't let you Taoist friends work in vain. You Taoist friends can cooperate with each other or trade in amount, and I agree. The premise is that both parties are voluntary. If there is forced buying and selling, killing and robbing, I have the power to punish. Please keep this in mind. Han Li warned everyone that he agreed with cooperation and trading, but he was afraid that it would turn into a dirty stream. This is what Han Li didn't want to see. Ugly words should be said in advance, so that no one will deny it at that time. Others nodded again, indicating that they would abide by the rules. Then, Han Li said, as long as the chips of Dao Yu are symmetrical with the needs, you can also exchange with Fulong Temple. Do you have any other questions? May I ask the Temple Master how to distribute these 100 sets of Tiandao battle suits? Someone asked again. This is the key point. Without this one, the previous 2 are completely useless, and it is useless to ask. There are so many of them that 100 sets of Tiandao battle clothes are completely insufficient. According to your Taoist friends, how should these 100 sets of Tiandao battle clothes be distributed? Han Li thought for a moment and then asked the question to them. Regarding the distribution of 100 sets of Tiandao battle clothes, Han Li had an idea in mind. However, it is useless for Han Li to have his own ideas. In the end, he will have to rely on these people to act, so it is better to let them take the lead. In the end, whoever failed to qualify has nothing to blame Han Li. It was their own decision and it has nothing to do with Han Li. Of course, whoever is stronger than the other. This great master in the Return to Void Realm stood up and spoke. Apart from Han Li and Yixingchen, he was the only one in the Tianyuan realm who had returned to the Void Realm. He had the capital to talk to Han Li. I agree. A powerful person who had fully transformed into a god also stood up and spoke. I agree too. There is another powerful person in the transformation stage who is making noise. The world is a world of jungle, and whoever is stronger should be rewarded. Subsequently, other great masters in the transformation stage expressed their agreement. It's strange that they don't agree. If the quotas are allocated according to strength, each of them will have a share. Currently, Tianyuan World has 3 cultivators in the Return to Void Realm, Han Li, Yixingchen, and the old man who just spoke. There are 84 in the God transformation stage. A few of them are natives of the Tianyuan World, and the rest of the God transformation stage monks have transferred from the original desolate world. Do as they wish. In this mission, these transferees have a huge advantage.